Goldberg-Strassler. Welcome back in. It is my pleasure to introduce Kevin Reichard, who will introduce our guest today, the 2021 Minor League Baseball Broadcaster of the Year, which is an award that's close to my heart. And this is a broadcaster who's so very deserving. But first, let me welcome in Kevin Reichard of Ballpark Digest. Kevin, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jesse. One of our past award winners in this category, which is a pretty good-looking group. And I'm really excited to announce that this year's Minor League Baseball Broadcaster of the Year is Sam Levitt of the Amarillo Sod Poodles. And again, it's quite an honor to be able to make this award to you, Sam. We take a lot of pride in this particular category. As a matter of fact, it's one that there's plenty of discussion about, and congratulations.
Well, first, Kevin and Jesse, thank you. I so appreciate it, and it's a huge honor to be the recipient of this award. Like you said, there are so many great broadcasters that have won this award, and the company I'm in, Jesse being one of them. Minor league baseball is a special place. It's a special place to work, and broadcasters work hard, and there are literally hundreds of minor league broadcasters who work tirelessly and are so talented, and quite frankly, so many that would be equally deserving of an award like this. So I really appreciate it, and it's a huge honor to get this.
Sam, what do you see as currently the role of the broadcaster in today's minor league baseball?
That's a great question, because I think it's evolved a lot in the last 10, 20 years as the business has evolved, as radio has evolved, as TV and media consumption has changed. I think even with all that, the role of the broadcaster at its fundamental level really has not changed very much, because I think the main job, if you want to sum it up in one sentence, is to create that special, meaningful connection between the team and the fans and the organization. And like my good friend Michael Coffin with the Corpus Christi Hooks likes to say, to spread the good word of insert team name around the community and around the country. So there's been a lot of change in this business with the way people consume games, consume content with social media. There's no doubt about that. And obviously we're on Zoom right now recording a podcast. 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't even know what that means. So it just shows you how much things have changed, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. And but even with that, the main purpose, and I think the job in and of itself, while the methods may be different, the purpose is really still the same. And that's still how I view it in a lot of different ways.
Take us through your path to becoming the voice of the Sod Poodles.
Well, I didn't have a traditional path in the sense of I wasn't somebody who at 5 years old was sitting with a toy microphone in front of the TV, making believe I was calling games. That was not me. I thought I would be likely pre-med when I went to Northwestern and took chemistry, and at the same time was taking classes in the School of Journalism. And I started, it's actually, I'll go even before that. The reason I even got into WNU, the student radio station at Northwestern, was because I didn't make the club baseball team. Had I made the club baseball team, I wasn't a very good high school player. I probably had no business going out for even the club team at Northwestern, but it seemed like a fun thing to do. To really not my surprise, I didn't make the team. And I went to the student radio station, and I started doing sportscasts on the news in the afternoon and doing the weekly sports talk show. And it took off, and I ended up switching into the Medill School of Journalism and going to the Cape Cod League. And really from that moment, I really decided to quote unquote go for it in the broadcasting business, in baseball broadcasting. In this example, I haven't stopped, and it's taken me my baseball jobs from the Cape Cod League to independent ball with the Gateway Grizzlies and the Frontier League for 3 seasons. Then I got my break in affiliated ball with the Corpus Christi Hooks, and I'll always be grateful to Mike Coffin, who's a tremendous broadcaster in his own right, and Matt Rogers and Ken Schramm and Andy Stevens and so many people down there in Corpus Christi, because that was a huge moment for me. You know, when I was in independent ball, one of my big questions was how I was going to get above that, because that can be, even if you spend a few seasons, can be a difficult jump. And then after 2 seasons there, the job opened up in Amarillo. It made a lot of sense for me in a number of different ways. And going to Amarillo is easily the best decision I've made in my broadcasting career. It's a tremendous place, tremendous job, came with a lot of challenges, being a first-year team, and things and days and weeks, especially from 2019, that I'll never forget, just with everything that went on. But I truly believe that I have one of, if not the best job in minor league baseball for a variety of different reasons. And that's how I got to where I am.
One of my favorite things about baseball is the stories. Some people dig the uniforms, some people dig the stats. I found on Baseball Reference, when it goes today in baseball history, the Gateway Grizzlies against the Joliet Slammers, the Brandon Thomas grand slam that broke the window of his car. And you were there, and you were on hand to take the photograph. Tell me about this story.
Yeah, that's a good one. So Brandon Thomas was an outfielder for the Grizzlies in 2016. He hit a grand slam to left field. The parking lot for the players was beyond left field. That's where the clubhouse entrance was. And he hits the grand slam. Awesome. Nobody really thinks anything of it. He goes out to his car after the game, or I'd have to check with him. I can't remember now if it was realized only after the game, or if a clubhouse manager realized during the game which car it had hit, because I think they knew it hit a car, but they may have not realized that it was Brandon's until he actually went out there after the game and he cracked his own windshield with the grand slam ball. And that is amazing in and of itself. I end up taking a photo, tweeting it out, and that was the start of a whirlwind of it getting picked up by every media outlet, sports and non-sports you could imagine. I mean, I guess it was cool. I didn't expect that it would go so far. Meanwhile, he's on SportsCenter on ESPN the next day, and we're setting that up. And it's funny because I remember our general manager, Steve Gomrick, saying to us, and we were tired like over those 24 hours. We were really working on setting all this stuff up. And I remember he said something to the effect of, and now it makes so much sense to me, understanding how the business works, of, hey, we've got to squeeze every last drop out of this. You know, this is the 15 seconds of Grizzlies fame nationally. And the Grizzlies have been famous for other things too, like their donut burger and things like that, and all the different crazy promotions. But yeah, it was a wild time. It's one of my favorite memories from being with the Grizzlies. And it does show you in a funny way, and this is, I guess, not early social media, but it's already 5 years ago, the power of putting things out and being active on social, and why it can be a huge benefit for a team.
I want to pursue that point because, as you mentioned, we're Zooming for a
Right.
podcast and keeping track of what can you do with present day technology to help connect you further. You sent out a tweet on September the 24th, 2019, quote unquote, "Apparently my brother is a TikTok star now. What is TikTok? LOL." It is not very long after that, and I can make the case that you are potentially TikTok's most popular minor league baseball broadcaster. Would you agree with that assessment?
I don't want to sound too much like I'm tooting my own horn, but I would agree with that assessment. Yes.
So that is an example of understanding a technology that at the time that you put that out, you did not understand, and and of all the reasons that you are the minor league baseball broadcaster of the year, there's your on-air ability. There's everything that you do for Amarillo. But I think, and Kevin, we talk about this a lot, and we were just talking about this with Jesse Cole, the ability to say what is at our fingertips now that can best connect us, especially when it comes to who do we want to draw in and get them to love baseball.
Right.
And Sam, you're doing it.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's always been a goal of mine, even going back to when I was in the Cape Cod Baseball League, to take the extra step on the content creation side and the social media side. Like I even think about things that we did back then. One of my great friends, Kevin Fitzgerald, Susie Milano, we did things there that had never been done before. Just simple things like recording our pregame interviews and posting them on YouTube, having highlight packages every night, things that now would seem so simple and standard and run of the mill, but back in 2012, 2013, maybe weren't, YouTube, not that it was new, but again, it's at this point, 7-8 years ago. So I've always had that mindset, and I've always wanted to be more than just a quote unquote radio guy. And I understand, and I don't mean that in any kind of negative way to any minor league broadcaster or anybody who loves being on the radio and they want that to be what they do. To me, I just think in today's day and age, it's really important that A, you connect to fans where they are, and B, you create value beyond just doing games on the radio. And Jesse, that as far as when it comes to these jobs and how competitive they are. So my mindset has always been that. So that followed me to the Grizzlies. I am very confident that, and you can ask people down at the Hooks to this day, that one of the main reasons I got my job with the Hooks was because of the reel I sent them, just with some of the hosting things and showing off the donut burger and showing off the new food items and ways to create content and promote your team. Again, what my friend Michael Coffin likes to say, spread the good word of, in this case, it was Gateway Grizzlies baseball or Corpus Christi Hooks baseball. And that followed me to Amarillo. If you would ask our general manager, Tony Inser, about why I got hired amongst the hundreds of applicants that applied for that job, that's a big part of it, because the reality is that there are a lot of people out there who can call a good game and have a great voice. There are, and that's a great thing for the teams around the country. I think in 2021, it's just really important that whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, or in my case, it's been a lot of TikTok, that you meet the fans where they are and you think outside the box. And I've always had that mindset throughout my entire career, going back to college in the Cape Cod Baseball League. And it really has, in an interesting way, come to fruition in its most rewarding way so far through TikTok, where, I was walking around minor league baseball ballparks this year and major league parks, and people stopping me saying, "Hey, I follow you." So that's a really, interesting part of it. But I would say that I've always had that mindset of wanting to be more than just a minor league radio broadcaster, but be a little bit more forward thinking.
So what's your secret sauce to TikTok? How did you break the formula?
I wouldn't say there was any great science to it. I started posting, and people liked it. It was different, and I spent a lot of time on it. I will be the first one to say that there were nights where we go on air. I have to go on air, do my TV pregame show when we're at home at 6:25, where at 6 p.m. I'm literally like editing the TikTok or like writing in the final text of the TikTok and trying to get it posted before, because once I go down there for the pregame show, forget it. I can't do it. Rightfully so. I should focus on my on-air duties. But I don't know, Richard, that there's any secret sauce to it other than working at it, and being committed to doing it, and also finding things that people like and playing to that, and a bunch of different aspects to it. But again, I think it's just about, how creative do you want to be, and how much work do you want to put in, or are you willing to spend time on something like that? Because I spent a lot of time on something like that. I don't know, maybe more than I should have, but I I think that's part of it too. It's like anything, how much time are you willing to put in? And there's a dose of creativity and just kind of willing to roll with whatever it is. Like there's some silly stuff I have on there. And there have been times where, I thought, oh man, I'm trying to be a serious broadcaster. But what I've learned is that you can be multifaceted, especially in today's day and age. The world's changing and the business is changing. And I think, at least for me, I think it's important that you kind of roll that way with it.
We can prod deeper. With regard to specifics.
Yeah.
For example, there's what word does somebody want you to fit into your broadcast?
Right. Yeah. And that's a good example, Jesse, because there were times where I'd be like, it's the ninth inning in a 2-2 game, and I'm, and it's not the moment to do stuff like that. So you got to pick your spots, right? But even that sort of stuff, and I never did anything inappropriate or anything like that. But even the word game stuff, which was popular for a while, again, it's just like, okay, people like it, they roll with it. And guess what? If that means that it drives people to your broadcast, or it makes them a Sod Poodles fan or a fan of minor league baseball, what a great thing. I mean, who cares how they find you? And I'll be honest, that the audience on that kind of platform, I think is probably quite different than the traditional person who's searching out our broadcasts. And that goes for mine and yours and most minor league baseball viewers and listeners. So I think it's a really valuable thing. And it may be something that you guys have talked about on your podcast before, I don't know, but baseball is trying to appeal to a younger audience and become become a sport for the youth. And I do think that meeting those fans and those potential baseball fans where they are is really important. And we see it with sports being broadcast on all these different apps and platforms and non-linear traditional places. I think that's the way it's going. And, I think it's wise to roll with that.
I think that's so fascinating because of where we started with this conversation, which is what is the role of a minor league broadcaster? Mm-hmm. And you talking about how you can make a case for it has not changed. It is what it has always been. And yet what you're touching on now is what it needs to become. And as we look forward into the future, especially as stadiums get safer and safer, and as we hope that baseball gets more and more accessible, as our country gets safer post-pandemic, we are looking at, all right, we really need to think about what we can do to expand baseball's reach. And that is what you were seriously taking a look at.
I'd agree. I feel like there's a lot of talk and debate about this particular thing, about how to attract new fans, how to speed up the game, all these different things that are the major, I guess, long-term talking points about the game. And I think it's incredibly important. And again, I think there's an element where you have to meet those people where they are. So what I've realized is something like TikTok, it's what, and this is my opinion, this is not scientific at all, I'm not some social media maven, I'm just telling you what's coming out of my brain. To them, to a lot of teenagers and high schoolers and older folks as well, it's what Facebook was to us back in middle school and high school, at least for me. Like Facebook was, I remember I downloaded Facebook in 2006. I remember the day I made the account. It was after a high school football game, I think like fall 2006 or 2007. And, we would share photos and write things about our life. And, and some people would post kind of inappropriate stuff that maybe they wouldn't want prospective colleges to see, things like that. Not me though. But, in a way, I think a lot of those principles have stayed the same, but for this up and coming generation, it's the same thing. Like, I see people that follow me just posting things about their high school sports. Not necessarily that it's something that's going viral, but you'll see their friends are all in the comments about it. And they share the way we did, and I guess we still do, just on a different platform. And that's, I think, been just the evolution of social media, right? At one point, I didn't have a Twitter. At one point, I didn't have an Instagram. I didn't have a TikTok. But this stuff has evolved. And I think it's important that baseball as a sport evolves with it. And there's a bit of meet them where they are. So.
Kevin, if you don't mind, I would like to hear some more great stories from Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So and let's go into the recent past with Amarillo as the voice of the Saudis. Tell me about any experiences that really stand out clearly in your memory.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I have one of, if not the best job in the minors. The Amarillo experience has been tremendous. The ability to be with a team from day one, to literally get there in late February 2019 and see the ballpark getting built and be in the offices across the street, and quite frankly, walking around a week before opening day and saying, how on earth are they going to play a baseball game with 7,000 people here in a week? I mean, this place doesn't even look close to done. Although I had heard from other people that everyone always feels that way about every stadium ever built, like even the major league ones. If you go a week before, you're like, how on earth are they going to have a baseball event here in a week? So even when we left for Corpus Christi, my booth is just a mess. I mean, the whole press box, it's full of stuff that they're working. I mean, they're still building a lot of this. So that's my initial great memory, is just the first couple of months of that season, going down to Corpus Christi to open up, and the palpable energy of what it felt like to do that, and then busing overnight and coming back and playing that night, the first ever game for a city or region that hadn't had an affiliated baseball team in more than in nearly 40 years. So that meant a lot. And it was a big deal to be a part of something like that, to truly be the biggest show and biggest story in a region, was pretty special. And what it did for me, it allowed me to, I feel like, really have an impact with those fans. And I talked about it with somebody yesterday. I do feel, and I think a lot of Sod Poodles fans would agree, like I have a very close relationship with a lot of the fans, which is really important, as you know, Jesse, for a broadcaster. You want that intimate relationship. You want them to feel like you're one of them. I think that is what makes some baseball broadcasters so incredibly meaningful to their communities, to their audiences, is that the fans feel like they're one of them. And maybe I got a little help because I was the first, and I was the original voice, and in some ways face of this team. And even before the season started, was out in the community, and we were doing all these different events and social media, and I was doing it. So the entire first 2 months of getting back home, getting through the first homestand, I think of things now, we were planning for games in a place with a team, with fans, with a front office, with game day employees that had never done it before. You're literally just envisioning what it's going to be like. You have no actual idea of what it's going to look like. And the same thing on the broadcast side. So, for example, I said, and I know this is kind of a rambling answer but I guess this is one big memory. I said very early on, when I got to Amarillo, we had a TV pregame show in Corpus Christi. Now, that had been there for a long time before I got there, but I thought it was an awesome thing. And it was a great aspect of our broadcast side, and just our in ballpark entertainment side. And I said to our GM, Tony, and he was all in on it, I said, I want to do that. We're going to do the same thing. We're making it Corpus Christi Northwest. Like, we're doing the same thing, because I think it's a great idea. But even when I was talking about that with him, with our director of promotions, I always found it in the days leading up to the season very difficult to actually describe what I was talking about. So I literally had to say to them, look, April 8th, 2019, this is what I need. We need the cameras here. We need this and this here. And just trust me. Let me just do it. And I promise you, you're going to like it. And, you know, we did it and made some adjustments, and it ended up being something we did up until the end of this year. And I think is a really, from a sponsorship side, from an in-ballpark entertainment side, is a key part of what we do now on the broadcast and in ballpark experience and sponsorship, all those side of things. So, you know, it was a lot of that, of just envisioning, and then going through the first 2 months, working with Joe Corbacero, our great video production man, figuring things out. Like, you know, we didn't have a high home camera at first, and it was like something that was kind of glossed over, and we're getting towards opening day. And I said to Joe, I was like, because our press box is off on the first base side. So I'm like, where are they going to put that camera? And Joe's like, I don't know. And so guess what? They had to, thank goodness that the video board folks were all there, because it was, oh, yep, that would be important for these supposedly like kind of TV quality broadcasts to have the camera behind the plate. So there were a lot of things like that, but watching that season unfold, watching the way the fans just gravitated to this group, to our manager, to the ballpark. I mean, the place was sold out 40 nights. It was an excellent place to call a game. There was such excitement every night, and that's carried over into this past season as well, especially with not having any games in 2020, to the ending of winning it, and the way that the Sod Poodles won the championship in dramatic fashion in a final game of a championship series, and having 5 elimination games throughout the postseason, winning each and every one. It was like a fairy tale ending. You know, I said in my final call, I said, I think it was, oh, now I'm forgetting, it was a while ago. I've listened to it a bunch. I think I said a fairy tale ending to a magical season. And it really was that. Like, it was that way on the field. It was that way in the stands. It was that way with the way it ended. It was that way for me and what my connection ended up being to the fans. And just 2019, it was a really magical season, I thought, in a lot of ways. And, you know, this season, 2021, was nice because we were settled in and we knew what to expect. I mean, even with the oddities of COVID and it being shorter and some of the regulations and, you know, Jesse, you know, I mean, all the different things we dealt with this year. It's funny. I feel like I still haven't had a regular quote unquote season in Amarillo, because 19 was not, and 21 in some ways still was not. You know, hopefully we get that in 2022 from the start and get 140 in. So, but yeah, when you talk about memories, I mean, even going back to this year, but I think about 2019 and just how the whole thing, how special it was, and how much I grew as a broadcaster and a person and a professional during that season.
So I think it's important to point out to people who may not remember exactly. 2019 was Amarillo's debut. It wasn't as though there was a team moving to Amarillo, because technically it was the old San Antonio franchise that was playing in Amarillo. Tony Inser had come there before from Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs franchise moved to Amarillo to San Antonio. So you were starting from scratch. You know, there were experienced people, obviously, but it's not as though there was a team of execs who were working together for years who made the transition up there. So you were building everything from scratch.
Yeah, the whole thing was from scratch, and it's a huge credit to our front office and Tony and our ownership. It was all from scratch. I'd never been involved in anything like it. And, you know, it was a tremendous opportunity, but I think in some ways a real challenge to make fans understand, as the lead up happened and as we got started, what this really was. You know, the other iterations of Amarillo Pro Baseball for the 20, 30 years before that were independent league teams, and I've got nothing against an indie ball. I'm a 3-year indie ball vet myself. But people were used to the indie ball teams, and many had come and gone in all different kinds of leagues, and some are collegiate leagues. And they had played at Potter County Memorial Stadium, which we had a great event there this year, and is still up and gets used by one of the local high schools. And it's awesome that they keep it. Potter County Memorial Stadium is not Hodgetown. So I think there was a bit of a learning curve. When I spoke to people before that season started, I think some people had the impression of Potter County Memorial and the indie ball teams. And I knew, even without ever seeing it at Hodgetown, I knew what this was going to be. I was like, no, both on the baseball side and the ballpark experience side, this is going to be something like this town hasn't had in so many different ways. And it proved to be that and more. And you're right, but building it all from scratch, it's a difficult thing to do, from, everything from just the name. There was tons of blowback about the sod poodle name. And again, if you know minor league baseball, you're probably thinking to yourself, as I did, all right, it'll pass. And I guess what? Once they get in this park and they see the players and they see the atmosphere, guess what? They're going to go buy a Sod Poodles t-shirt. It's not going to really matter what it says here. And guess what? I can't remember the last time anybody said anything about the name. It shows you how much I know, right? Because they had jerseys that they got before 2019 that said Soddies on them, Soddies. And the nickname for the Sod Poodles is the Soddies. I saw these jerseys before we started, and I said out loud, I said, that is such a dumb nickname. I was like, who's going to call them? What is a Soddy? Like, who's going to call them the Soddies? I think I said to people around the office, I was like, I'm never calling them the Soddies. Well, guess what? Everybody calls them around town, including me. The Soddies, it caught on, and oh my God, I probably call them the Soddies more than I call them anything else. So it shows you how much I know. And that's a credit to Tony and our ownership and our marketing, and they saw it. And, they did an amazing job with everything with that, from building it from scratch.
Sim, let me ask you for your advice. I spent 2 years in the artist formerly known as the Southern League, and it was hot and it wiped me out. How do you beat the Texas heat?
Let's start with Corpus Christi, because the Corpus Christi heat is quite different than the Amarillo heat. And I throw San Antonio into this mix as well, but let's focus on Corpus, because Corpus is, quite frankly, as somebody who spent 2 seasons there, is quite frankly the hottest place on earth. Like, you walk out of the tunnel during BP or in the early evening, and it's literally like you're walking into an oven. It's so humid. How do you beat it? I don't have a great answer, because I tend to, I wear polos, but I also tend to wear more shirts like these, and I wear pants, really. I rarely wear shorts. Like when I work, I wear shorts casually, but I kind of like pants. You're sitting for a long amount of time. I don't like my legs touching the office chair for that long. It's all sticky. So I tend to wear pants. I think pants is, for me at least, is a better look. So I don't really consider what I wear. It could be 100 degrees out and you'll find me in khakis and a button down. And, we do some TV stuff. So I've always wanted to look the part. And how do you beat it? I don't know. I don't have a great answer. All I can tell you is that Corpus Christi, unbelievably hot. San Antonio is maybe a tad better, but it's a very similar humid climate. Amarillo gets hot. Frisco gets hot. Midland gets hot. But it's a different heat. It's a much drier heat. I find the Amarillo heat much easier to deal with than Corpus. It's just not it's so humid in Corpus Christi. It's insane. It's insane. The thing you get in Amarillo, though, that probably most people don't realize, is you get dust. You get the plains panhandle dust. We have these big windows we open up every night, and literally every morning I wipe down our counters and wipe down our windowsill and do it in the visiting booth. And I literally have a layer of dust on the paper towel. It's just so dusty. And I don't mean like dusty inside, but it's dirt that just blows around. You don't see it. So that's one little interesting part about the Panhandle weather every night is, yeah, it's very, very, the dust from the plains and the ranches that gets blown into the booth quite a bit.
Speaking with the Minor League Baseball Broadcaster of the Year in 2021, Sam Levitt, the voice of the Amarillo Sod Poodles, as named by Ballpark Digest. Sam, what's been your most difficult challenge as a broadcaster?
Wow, that's a great question. It's a great question, Jesse. I don't know that anybody's ever asked me that. My greatest challenge. By the way, I always say that, it's a good question if somebody reacts like this and they and they have to really think about it. They say, "Oh, that's a great question." That's how you asked a good one.
Yes, because usually answers are, and this might be the wrong word for it, but it's practiced. Because if an answer comes quickly to mind, it's been said before, you've thought about it before.
For sure.
It's good to give that something. You don't need a quick answer to this one.
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge for me has just been the life part of it. The far from home nature of it. I mean, there's aspects to traveling and living in different parts of the country as a kid from New York. I mean, I never thought I'd live in Amarillo, Texas, or Corpus Christi, or St. Louis, or Lansing, Michigan. Jesse, you remember that? I mean, if you would have asked 15-year-old Sam where Amarillo or Corpus Christi or any of these places that we go was on a map, I'd have no idea. And I've been super, super, super blessed to live in places that are far different than where I grew up and where I went to college. And that's been, quite frankly, I mean, that has not been a challenge at all. I think it's been one of the most beautiful aspects of my career. And many people can relate to that, and the bouncing around nature and living in smaller cities and things like that. It's been one of the things I've loved about it, that I've absolutely adored about this journey is being in different places and getting a bit of a different experience than everybody else I grew up with that mostly stayed in New York. And I've loved that part, but there are challenges that come with that. Just navigating this business. I'm in Chicago right now. When I do this other part of the year where I do other sports, and it's much more of a mix and match, and navigating the right moves to make, dealing with some of the loneliness, quite frankly, that comes from this willingness to bounce around and be on your own a lot. I mean, you know the feeling, Jesse, like you're on your own a lot in this world, being on the road. And, I don't have any family or I didn't know a soul in Amarillo, Texas, or Corpus Christi, or St. Louis when I went to all these places. So dealing with some of that, I think is challenging, and for me, and I'm sure for mostly every broadcaster out there, my goal, while I love my jobs, and it's been like I said, I have one of, if not the best job in the minors, my goal is ultimately to do it on the major league level. And I'm never shy about saying that. Why would I? I feel like that's a noble goal. That should be the goal. And, when you operate with that in mind, you feel some of that pressure of like, hey, how do I navigate that? How do you get there? How do you, I mean, it's an inexact science. It's like any business in that way. And what's your willingness to bounce around to, I'll give you, again, the challenges. I've never had a real apartment. I have since college, where I did have, more of my own furniture and bed. And since college, I have not owned a couch. I have not owned a kitchen table. I have not owned a bed. I'm in a sublet right now. Amarillo, I take a 6-month lease. I don't have if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen the pictures. I have nothing in there because I'm never there, right? I'm either at the ballpark or on the road with the team. And I've been doing this situation for the last 3-4 years now. And it was, Corpus Christi, I was in a furnished place, but again, it wasn't really mine, Same thing with St. Louis. I lived in a bunch of different situations there and sublets and host families. Since college, I haven't had a place that I call home, a place that feels like mine or really felt like a real home base, and I think a lot of people would really struggle with that, that feeling and that uncertainty. So again, a rambling answer, but I think that's probably the biggest challenge of some of this stuff, the uncertainty, the bouncing around, the life aspects to it. I think you do sacrifice, and I'm not alone in this, of broadcasters who do this, but I think there's quite a bit of sacrifice in the other parts of life when you pursue something like this. And my career has dictated every move I made, every place I've lived, every, time I've moved. And, I've done it with nothing more than my Honda CRV and packing up the back. I've never even had a U-Haul because I don't have anything. So that's been challenging. And as I get a little bit older and deeper in my career, I think it gets more challenging. You feel that pull a little bit to feel like you have a real home to maybe go on a date, or life things, that I think other people maybe have higher on the priority list when they're in their 20s. So that's what I would say. The life aspect to it is probably the most challenging. But again, there are beautiful, beautiful things about that life that I would never trade. I would never trade living in these different places and getting such a rich experience. I don't see myself ever regretting any part of that.
Sam, this has been a pleasure. Kevin, do you have any other questions?
No, I am so enthralled by your stories that this has been a most enjoyable interview, to say the least.
Well, I'm glad. I feel like when I do these podcasts, I tend to ramble on a little bit, but I get really excited and then I start going. It's funny. I always feel like, and I ironically do have a microphone in front of me right now, but I always feel like when I'm actually on air, I am much more succinct. Like the light goes on in my head and it's much more concise thought. But I've enjoyed it, guys. Again, I'm truly honored to receive the award. There are a lot of really, really good broadcasters out there who work, just as hard as I do and call a great game and mean so much to their communities and organizations. So to receive this award, it means a lot.
I think that's an interesting point. Just, I think as a final thought,
Mm-hmm.
on behalf of broadcasters in minor league baseball, what do you have to say on behalf of all of those who serve as voices for their team?
You mean for them or to them?
You can choose.
Okay, I'll give you one for each. I would say my message to them is have fun. It's something that I wish I would have said more to myself when I was in independent ball and I was early on in my career, where I was truly so focused on always what was next. Like when I was with the Gateway Grizzlies, and I love Gateway, I was laser focused on what the next move was going to be. And I just wish in so many ways, and I can even say it about this past season, like slow down and enjoy it. You're around, I mean, you're living the dream. I mean, you're calling baseball games every night for a job and around players. Like if you just step back and look at it, no matter what challenges there are, or some of the hard things about the business that we just talked about, I mean, you've got one of the coolest gigs around. And there are people that, think what you do is literally the coolest thing. So have fun. And when you're on air, have fun. Yeah, it's important. Yeah, there are careers on the line and guys are trying to get to the major leagues, and coaches, these are livelihoods and they've got families and goals of their own. So it is serious business for sure, but have fun. It's a baseball game. Joke, laugh, smile, have fun, call it with energy. Fans want to hear you, have energy, and they want you to sound like what they feel, so remember that. So that's my message to them. My message for them would be, make sure if you can, or I don't know, something about like the press box food. I was going to say, like, nobody ever gets one plate. That would be my secret. Or maybe they do. Maybe I'm the only one.
Kevin Reichard, any final thoughts?
No, I want to thank you for joining us today, Sam. This has been a true pleasure.
All right, Kevin, Jesse, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
For Sam Levitt, our 2021 Minor League Baseball Broadcaster of the Year is named by Ballpark Digest. At Ballpark Digest, Kevin Reichard, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. Thank you.